Tensions soar in Egypt after a weekend of bloodshed. We'll have the latest on the army takeover from Cairo. Family feud. Nelson Mandela's grandson, Mandla, says he will fight efforts to remove him as clan chief. And as the holy month of Ramadan approaches, food prices soar. Africa 54 starts right now.
Hello and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory and this is Africa 54. We begin in Egypt, where a clash between the army and demonstrators has left at least 51 people dead. Hundreds are reported wounded. Protesters enraged by the military ouster of Egypt's elected Islamist president said the army opened fire during morning prayers outside the Cairo barracks where Mohamed Morsi is believed held. But the military says soldiers returned fire when they were attacked by armed assailants. They claim the terrorist group tried to storm the Republican Guard compound and one army officer was killed and 40 wounded. Interim Egyptian President Adli Mansour has called for restraint, but the incident has further frayed efforts to form a transitional government. For more on the fast-moving developments, we are joined live by Tarek Al-Shami, the Cairo bureau chief of Al-Hurra. And now, Tarek, coming to you, tell us what is happening behind you and give us some further details, particularly on the shootings today.
Yeah, actually, I'm here in Tahrir Square, the heart of the Egyptian revolution. But now it is for the late President Morsi, who has been ousted from the military and from, of course, the great masses of the Egyptian people who have massed in here a few days ago and yesterday. And almost every day they get mass in here just after the sunset. Yeah. Now those people here are still celebrating, but at the same time they still worry about the future of Egypt. They are seeing and grieve what has been happening today at dawn near the Republican Guard, where about 42 people have been killed and another people have been injured. Yeah. And that was the climax of the crisis here in Egypt. You know, each party is accusing the other party. The army has announced today that they didn't shoot on the protesters, the pro-Morsi protesters. On the other side, the Muslim Brotherhood people are saying that the Republican Guard has shot them indirect shots in the head, according to what they say. But actually, a lot of pictures have been shown in the Egyptian television, and of course the Republican Guard and the army provided these pictures, which shown the Muslim Brotherhood are shooting at the Republican Guard, while the other side are showing also pictures that showing the Republican Guard are trying to attack but not shooting at them.
Now, talking about the Muslim Brotherhood, they are calling people to come out and kind of launch an uprising. Is there any sign that that is going to happen?
Sorry, I didn't hear the question. Can you repeat it? Because we have loudspeakers down there.
The Muslim Brotherhood is calling for an uprising. Is there any sign of that happening?
Actually, what has happened today made some kind of fears that this kind of violence will escalate in the coming few days. That's why they have asked the pro-Morsi people to go in the streets in an uprising against what has happened. But until now, we do not see a big signs that they are having mass people in Rab al Adawiya, which is in about 20 kilometers from here in East Cairo. But they are trying every now and then to show to the Western world that they have the power to get people in the street back on.
Okay, Tarek, there have been efforts to form a transitional interim government. What is the progress in that?
Sorry, didn't hear you. Again.
What is the progress? What is the progress in the efforts to form a transitional government?
Oh, yeah. The new president, transitional president, is trying hard to make it clear and to go on in the moving to the democracy back again. But actually, Al-Noor Party, which is an Islamic Salafist party, has objected against Dr. Muhammad al-Baradei, the Nobel Prize and one of the Salvation Front coordinator, and also they have objected and rejected the another nominated as a prime minister who was has worked before in the Egyptian government. So that's what happened during the last 2 days. But now Al-Noor Party says that he has withdrawn from this process, and this would make it clear to the new president to form the new government as soon as possible. And the most likely is that Dr. al-Baradei will be the deputy president in the common form of the new government, or the body that they are trying to move ahead. So everybody is expecting this would be settled down in 1 or 2 days.
Thank you very much. Tariq. That's Tariq Al-Shami, the Cairo bureau chief for Al Hurra television. Now, amid the cheering, there is increasingly strident criticism of the United States. VOA's Sharon Ben has more on that from Cairo.
It was the largest gathering of the week. Thousands of people, including families with their children, crowded into Tahrir Square one more time. This time, says dentist Dalia Ezeldin, the crowds are celebrating the country's second revolution, the military's ouster of President Mohamed Morsi.
I am here to encourage our army and our Egyptian and to support our revolution. It's not a coup, it's a revolution.
The military deployed troops in the streets on fears of more violence. Earlier in the day, Muslim Brotherhood supporters also took to the streets, demanding that Mr. Morsi be returned to the presidency. The military has arrested the top leadership of the Brotherhood, something Nagi Abdel Rasoul welcomes.
They belong in jail. I hope you tell the world that this is a revolution. It's not a military coup, it's a revolution of a nation that has been tired for a full year, that is paying the price now. It was the biggest mistake in Egypt's history that they elected the Muslim Brotherhood to power.
And anger is growing at the apparent lack of support by U.S. President Barack Obama, who has said Washington does not back any particular Egyptian party or group.
They are supporting their interests, and their interests is with the Muslim Brotherhood, because of course there are certain agendas that has happened.
Egypt's military, which said it ousted Morsi in response to the will of the people, flew over the square to the cheers of thousands, sending a clear message to those below as well as to Morsi's supporters. But as night fell on the square, it was clear the anti-Morsi protesters were not going to give up what they say they have won. For VOA News, this is Sharon Bain in Cairo.
Now let's turn to West Africa, where the Malian army's return to the Tuareg rebel stronghold of Kidal was met with protests. Locals who support the Tuaregs scaffold with residents who support the army as the convoy of soldiers rode into a military base. As the convoy of soldiers rode rather into the military base, soldiers from the newly formed United Nations peacekeeping mission to Mali, or MINUSMA, tried to contain the crowds. Mali's interim government wants its administration reinstated in Kidal before the July 28th presidential election. Islamic militants unleashed a violent attack in Nigeria over the weekend, and Africa's 54's Ndimiake Mwakalieli joins us now with the details. Ndimi?
Well, thank you, Vincent. The governor of Nigeria's Yobe state has ordered all schools to shut down until September following the killing of at least 30 people by suspected Islamist gunmen. They raided the school in the village of Mamudo early Saturday, killing at least 29 students and a teacher. Survivors said the attackers set buildings on fire and then shot students as they tried to escape. The shooting is said to be the deadliest of at least 3 of the schools in northern Nigeria since May, when the military began its offensive against Boko Haram. Now joining us via Skype from Abuja, Nigeria with more details is VOA's Heather Murdoch. Hi, Heather. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Hi, thank you.
First, if you could just clarify for us if there's been any responsibility claimed by the suspected group, in this particular case Boko Haram, for that particular shooting at that school.
Not so far. I mean, people generally assume it's Boko Haram, but they haven't claimed responsibility.
Okay, moving on to what the governor has done. He has ordered all schools shut down until September. Why this move, and what does it indicate about their fear and concern for schools in particular?
Well, what he said was he was closing schools down because he can't secure them. And I think it speaks to a change in attacks, in tactics, in that previous school attacks by Boko Haram or suspected Boko Haram have been on empty buildings and or appeared to be religiously motivated. These particular attacks were on students while they were at school. So I think that's why the governor decided to shut down the schools. Mm-hmm. He also called for the security forces to allow people to use cell phones and sat phones again. Right now, all of the communication systems are down. So he says that if the local people could use their phone systems, they might be able to help prevent future attacks by alerting authorities to suspicious characters around schools.
The shooting at this particular school, what does it indicate about how at least so much more radical this group is becoming? Shooting specifically and targeting these children, these school children. Is that something, even though they've been targeting schools before, does it deviate from their pattern in this particular case?
It does, or at least it appears to. I mean, as you know, Boko Haram, the name Boko Haram is a nickname that was given to the group, meaning Western education is a sin in the local Hausa language. So they've always been against Western education, but they haven't been known for specifically looking to target children before. So it does seem significantly different and significantly more frightening.
Mm-hmm. Tell us about what President Goodluck Jonathan has said at this point. Of course, he declared a state of emergency in 3 of the states where Boko Haram is said to be running wild. Is there a deviation, or is he proposing a different tactic? Because obviously it's not containing Boko Haram, even though they might have scurried off.
President Jonathan came out with a statement, I believe today, reacting to the attack in Yobe State over the weekend. No, he didn't specifically say that they were going to change tactics. He reiterated his determination to continue his war on terrorism. He said the attackers themselves will go to hell, which is significant to say in this very, very religious country.
Okay.
But he didn't suggest that they were in any way losing.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Heather Murdoch, joining us from Abuja, Nigeria.
Thanks.
Well, thanks a lot, Demi. Now, Zimbabwe's presidential election is just over 3 weeks away, and Prime Minister Morgan Tsvangirai is launching his 3rd campaign to unseat veteran President Robert Mugabe. Speaking at a campaign rally, Mr. Tsvangirai told youth members of his political party Zimbabweans are ready for a new leader, but he believes the vote could be rigged. Elections were confirmed for July 31st last week after Zimbabwe's Constitutional Court rejected a series of government appeals to delay the date to allow more time for reform of the security forces and state media.
We are faced with an election without reforms and against a leopard that has remained faithful to its spots. But our faith in God and our collective desire for real transformation will make us triumph over the setbacks we have experienced.
President Mugabe launched his election campaign on Friday in a bid to extend his 33 years in power, despite worries over his health and age. 89 Mugabe, Africa's oldest president, denies reports he suffers from prostate cancer or other major problems. Now, a new twist in the Mandela family feud. Nelson Mandela's grandson, Mandla Mandela, has been stripped of his authority. King Zweli Bazi Dalindyebo of the Tembo tribe told tribal elders Mandla is no longer recognized as a chief of Temboland. He says Mandla was wrong to move the bodies of 3 of Mr. Mandela's children without permission, and he says Mandla has not shown any remorse after losing a court battle.
He has not only angered us, he has angered his own family and disrespected his own family and backbiting his own family. So as long as the family does not need him in their premises, we don't need him in the Madiba clan at all.
Well, meantime, Nelson Mandela has been hospitalized now for 1 month. The government says he remains in critical but stable condition. Now, we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is VOA Africa 54, and check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Coming up, preparing for Ramadan while coping with high food prices in Nigeria. Stay with us.
Lively debate, global perspectives, audience participation. Join Shaka Sali, host of Straight Talk Africa.
If you have questions, we give you terrific answers on Straight Talk Africa.
From political power to self-empowerment, join us each week as Straight Talk Africa tackles the challenges facing the continent.
Independent.
We bring you top guests, different perspectives, and potential solutions. Connect with us by phone and the web, and follow us on Facebook.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Muslims across the continent are getting ready for the holy month of Ramadan. It's expected to begin as early as Tuesday, but in Nigeria, tough economic times force many Muslim families to cut back on the lavish meals and spreads usually prepared after a full day of fasting. Shoppers say the cost of basic items, including fruit and vegetables, are way up at the markets. Some merchants say the increases should be expected, but some think it's unfair.
I've gone to the market, but the unfortunate thing is that if you go to the market, all these foodstuffs and other things have risen. The prices have skyrocketed. It's very unfortunate. This is the month, the holy month, and I believe things should not skyrocketed like that. The prices should not escalate just like that. I think this is the blessed month. I think what we need is everything should come down so that we should buy everything as it's supposed to be.
When many employers make allowances for staff observing Ramadan, permitting them to take breaks to pray and eat, but general working hours in governmental and corporate organizations are not affected. Now, if you eat a lot of salt, you can increase your risk of heart disease, and Africans are not exception. But there are many ways to limit your salt intake. VOA's Caroline Pearson has the details.
Eating too much salt can lead to high blood pressure, stroke, and heart attack, even where it's least expected. Researchers in Kenya from the Weill Cornell Medical College say hypertension is on a startling rise in sub-Saharan Africa. The problem is so severe in the Americas that PAHO, the Pan American Health Organization, launched a program called Salt Smart. Branka Legedich is the program coordinator.
Hypertension is a leading problem throughout the whole world. It actually contributes to the most of the risks as well as most of the diseases that are so-called non-communicable diseases. It is number one.
Legedich says most people don't know the dangers of eating too much sodium, the chemical found in salt. The World Health Organization recommends no more than 5 grams of sodium per day, the amount in a teaspoon of salt. The goal of Salt Smart is to get people to cut their salt intake in half by the year 2020.
We know that the people now consume, for instance, 10 grams, 11 grams of salt, 17 grams of salt in some Caribbean countries. So it's 3 times or 2 times more than it's recommended.
In the U.S., Million Hearts, a government-sponsored program, aims to prevent 1 million heart attacks and strokes by 2017. Dr. Janet Wright is the executive director.
We're asking for this effort to begin with the individual, within each of us. I think so many of us have been touched by heart disease because it is still the #1 killer in the country. 1 out of 3 deaths in the country.
Wright explains that simple practices can go a long way to achieving this goal.
It could be adding a fruit or a vegetable. It could be building your way up to 150 minutes of exercise each week. And it can also mean working with your healthcare team to stay on medicines if they've been prescribed.
Wright says missing even a day's medication damages the heart, the kidneys, eyes, and blood vessels. Branka Legedich also says healthy eating habits could go a long way because there's a lot of salt in processed foods.
I think that the people have to be conscious about how much eat and then what do they eat, and really strive toward more fresh and unchanged products.
The Pan American Health Organization is working with food manufacturers to reduce the amount of sodium that goes into processed food. Until that happens, the simplest way is to cut down on the consumption of processed and restaurant foods. Carol Pearson, VOA News.
Well, still to come on Africa 54, a big win at Wimbledon and the rest of the news in sports. But first, a recap of Monday's headlines.
We are faced with an election without reforms.
Il pensiero gli è tornato continuamente come una spina nera.
Welcome back to Africa 54. An Egyptian boy shares his views about politics and becomes a viral hit.
عشان نخرج لفاشية دينية. يعني فاشية دينية ده أنا ما أعرفش يعني إيه فاشية أصلاً. يعني إن فاشية دينية هي إن أنت تستخدم الدين اللي أنت عايزه وتتشدد في الدين وتعمل حاجات باسم الدين والدين ما بيتاخدش كل دوت.
The young Egyptian pundit, reportedly 12 at the time, was actually interviewed in Cairo by the newspaper El Wadi way back in October. The video circulated widely on Saturday as much of the world turns its attention to Egypt. Some viewers say the young boy, currently a star on the link-sharing site Reddit, should be Egypt's next president. Next, why do they do it? Now, yes, it's time for the running of the bulls in Pamplona, Spain. Several thousand thrill-seekers tested their bravery this weekend by dashing alongside 6 raging bulls through the streets of the northern Spanish city. Runners scattered, tripped and fell as they tried to get away despite being hemmed in by the narrow streets. And despite all the drama, only 4 people were treated for injuries and no one was gored. And finally, royal baby fever sweeps Britain. The new third in line to the throne is expected to be born sometime around mid-July. Kate's pregnancy has been one of the most talked about topics over the last month. And not just in the press, the baby is already creating a boom in business. Retailers have begun to stock up on royal baby cups and plates. The special collections also include shoes, blankets, and cuddly toys. And that's what is trending today. Now, the royal baby isn't the only thing being celebrated in the UK. Here's Sunny Young with the sunny side of sports. Welcome, Sunny.
Thanks, Vincent, and sporty greetings once again to our Africa 54 viewers. My opening serve is Wimbledon tennis. Novak Djokovic wiped the sweat from his brow, but at the end of the day, Andy Murray is basking in the glow of being Britain's first Wimbledon champion in 77 years. Count them, 77 years. Murray defeated world #1 Djokovic in straight sets, 6-4, 7-5, and 6-4, setting off celebrations in Murray's hometown of Dunblane, Scotland, and throughout the United Kingdom. Kick it, Andy Murray! Celebrations in the UK for the newly crowned Wimbledon champion. On the women's side at Wimbledon, let me twirl my trusty racket for Marion Bartoli. The French player defeated Germany's Sabina Lisicki in straight sets, 6-4 and 6-1 to win the women's title at Wimbledon. It was the first Grand Slam title for the 28-year-old Bartoli. Congratulations to her. Now let's go to Paris and let's see the lightning bolt pose by Usain Bolt. There he is, the lightning bolt. Ran the year's fastest time, electrifying the crowd at the Diamond League meet in the French capital. He clocked 19.73 seconds. The lightning bolt says he loves racing in Paris and adds he still has some work to do to get ready for next month's World Championships in Moscow. Finally, here's a sunny side of sports salute for Ghana's Black Satellites. The Ghanaian boys scored a thrilling 4-3 victory over Chile in extra time to advance to the semifinals of the FIFA Under-20 World Cup football tournament in Turkey. Ebenezer Asafua was the hero for the Black Satellites. He had 2 goals, including the game winner in the 121st minute. Ghana will go against France in the semifinals Wednesday, and in the other semifinal, Iraq will play Uruguay. And thanks to World Football's governing body, FIFA, for that video. I'm VOA Sunny Young, and that's the sunny side of sports. Vincent?
Well, thanks a lot, Sunny, for the sunny side of sports. And join us every Monday and Friday for an update on sports. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website. Thanks a lot for watching. Have a good night.
Thank you.